is on the committee. Every member votes. Mr. Rawl is not in attendance tonight. He is out of town visiting family. The first item on the agenda, the West Ashley Tax Increment Financing District has been removed at the request of several council members, and the City of Charleston has asked to be able to be present to present it. I believe the mayor has said he would like to come present. We will afford him that opportunity. Item 2, Minority Business Program, Mr. Bustrand, Mr. Tolbert.
Yeah, I'd like to make an update presentation on our minority business program. Barrett Tolbert and Miranda Nichols will speak to it.
Good evening. What we're going to do for you tonight is give you a diversity initiative program update and some path going forward. Barrett Tolbert, Contract Procurement Director. And as we take a look at our Minority Business Development Program, the program itself, its mission statement is to assist minority and small business and opportunities by certifying them and connecting them to enterprises for the purpose of business opportunity and business growth. Currently, the program is staffed 5 to 6 people, to include myself with oversight. And the Specialist Program Department works with small and minority businesses in the community, and they do a pretty good job of connecting them to opportunities, and we'll go through that as we go through this presentation. The program itself was established back in 2005 with a resolution by County Council, and the goal at the time for minority business participation was 10%. We did a disparity study 10 years ago, and the disparity study also asked us to expand the program, where we, at that time, created a small business enterprise program. In 2007, we raised the goal to 20%, and then this year, the goal was raised to 25%. As you can see, over the past 3 years, we've managed that target. We hit a target of about 24, 25, and 25%. So it's a moving target, but we have reached that target in performance over the years. Now what I'm going to do is turn it over to Miranda Nichols. I'm going to let her talk about focus and some of the path going forward with the program.
Good evening. I'm Miranda Nichols, and I work in the NWBE Department of Procurement. So in talking about the focus, we're looking to certify, develop, connect, and advocate on behalf of minority businesses. When you get into the certification piece, we're talking about, where do I move this? Okay. The SBE, but also the MBE and the DBE certification through Charleston County. That is an initial process. Then in going through the DOT to get the MWDBE certification, that's something that translates across state lines, so it prepares these businesses to grow smartly. When we're talking about connecting and developing businesses, we're talking about putting businesses together with larger firms so that they can, again, learn how to grow smartly. Encouraging businesses to attend pre-bid procurement briefings so that they can meet with the larger businesses that are mostly primes and develop that relationship at the pre-bid level. Also, providing and funding business development workshops. We recently had a workshop, Taxes for Small Business, that went very well, because small businesses definitely need to understand how to do taxes, that they need to do taxes, and how frequently they need to do taxes. And that workshop addressed all those issues. Also, how to do business with the government. A lot of small businesses just don't understand how to do business with the government. And the ones that have somewhat of an understanding or aren't ready to do business with the government from a financial standpoint. So this workshop is something that addresses that. As you can see, there's a list of them that we do throughout the year, but the main one that we're working on right now is the annual meet and greet, which is where we connect small minority businesses with the larger firms in an environment where we're bringing those people together in the Charleston County space. We currently have over 100 small businesses confirmed, and 30 large businesses confirmed for this particular event. Advocacy is something that we talk about as it relates to small and minority business inclusion issues, something that Mr. Tolbert just was speaking about, and how there's been an increase based on percentages for inclusion of MBE contractors in clauses in the contracts for MBE businesses. Like he said, that number is a moving target. As those numbers become more solid, then we'll be able to talk about something that's a little more solid as well, as far as the minority business inclusion. The business counseling is when we bring the businesses in and we talk with them about their forward-thinking goals. How are they going to expand? How are they going to grow? And how can we help them grow? Those are the kinds of counseling sessions that we have with the businesses. And also talking about the certifications. The DOT certification, as I stated before, translates across state lines. So once they get that DOT certification, they're ready to grow in other areas outside of South Carolina, which helps them to move from a small to a medium to a large size business. And the site visits, of course, through DOT, where we report to federal aid projects. This is also a part of advocacy, where we go out to the sites, and we make sure that everybody is meeting the requirements based on the federal guidelines. So when we're talking about gaps in the current services, I'm going to turn this back over to Mr. Tolbert.
As we've worked with minority and small businesses over the years, we realize there are a few things that has been a hindrance to them. One is business plan development. And a lot of small and minority firms don't have the wherewithal to develop these business plans or know where to go to get it. Of course, the next big problem for a lot of business, but especially small business, is access to capital. And because they don't have access to capital, they can't grow. In some cases, they can't even start, which limits them from even getting professional training services to even hire people or for themselves to figure out how to build a good staff. A lot of firms do have ideas as far as patent support, but don't know where to go, and of course, staffing support. So we're saying, how do we bridge the gap and make this work? Well, there are a number of ways. Number one, we can further expand the office that we have and create a business development office. And this office would be concerned with minority small business development, minority small business growth. When we do these things, number one, when you look at small businesses, they hire about 65% of the workforce across the country. Here's a way for us to reach out in the community and get these small businesses to grow. By getting these small businesses to grow, we can probably hire more people here locally. That would solve a lot of issues. To get these small businesses to work with the corporate community. That where there's an interaction with these small businesses can work with some of the larger businesses, and there's a community growth and also business participation. With these small businesses working with these larger firms such as the Boeings, Volvo, Mercedes-Benz, and some of the other large firms coming to town, it gives them access and also opens the doors for them. We want to also promote financial sustainability for minority businesses, which is creating a microloan program for small businesses or expanding some of the ones that are here. Because a lot of businesses just don't know where to go. And what we've found traditionally is they're afraid to go in the front door of a bank to even open up a checking account. So we have to get to that point where we get them a little bit more educated, a little bit more comfortable, because if we get the small business community to grow, it will be a plus for the community. Also work with what we have here now in the COG and also the local development corporation, because they do have small microloans for these firms, and enhance the existing businesses by helping them expand their doors. Also, we used to have what is called a jobs program, where we work with these contractors, and these contractors who get contracts for the county would have a need to fulfill employment, to start working with them again so that they can reach out to the community and we can take some of these folks off of the streets and put them back into jobs again. Solution. We had a financial roundtable back in July with South State Bank, and their community business banker, Ed McKelvey, is here with us today. Ed, please stand. And one of the things we did is we sat down, and I was a banker back in my former life about 26 years ago. And this is what we used to do. Small firm got a contract with the government. Contracting officer signed off on the contract. They'd take it to the bank. The bank would help them finance that particular project right there. It did two things. Number one, it gave the small business access to capital. Two, it helped them build credit. And three, it helped them also develop a long-term relationship with the bank. That's what we want to try to do, and that's one of the reasons why we're working closely with South State Bank in that capacity. We talked about small business banking and access to capital, also creating a microloan program to help with that. What we want to do is work with the partnerships we have here in the community. Get a person to understand how to set up a business, how to start a business, and what we used to call it a couple of years ago, from the cradle to the grave, how to start that business and how to walk away from that business when you're ready to retire. Fields is here, and I believe he has a few comments he'd like to make before we close.
Good evening, Council. One of the reasons this was important to me and when we got involved was the fact that there always has been a disconnect. We have businesses and we hear about contracts, but we never have access to those contracts. We hear about them after they're already gone, or either with people where we go to get these contracts, we didn't qualify, something happened, and now, for the most part, we're disconnected again, which means we become disenfranchised, which means we become left out in the cold again. Hopefully this program that we have now is a program that can bridge that gap. That a guy that wants to know where contracts are, that we have one part of the house that will be out there trying to get these contracts, these Title 10, these Section 548 government code, that these money that should be coming to them, that should be rightfully coming to them, that we have no access to. So now we're hoping that with this program, we'll have access to that. We're hoping that with this program, people who are disenfranchised, small business owners, now have a chance to have a seat at the table. What the brothers talk about, what Torba talked about just now, but the relationship with South State Bank can make that happen. We have a chance here to now bring people out of the door, help them get their business license, help them get their plan together, and on one side of the house, have people out there that are going out, these Title 10 companies and these Section 548, bringing them to the table and marrying them. This is how we create. This is how we move. This is how we engage our community. This is how we make our community stronger. So I'm hoping that what has been said tonight doesn't fall on deaf ears, that it finally gives us a chance for what we've always been asking for, which is fair access. And nobody wants nothing given to them, but at least teach us. Let us teach each other how we can get it. Thank you.
And finally, you have the entire small business, minority business development staff, procurement staff here, please stand. These are the people who've been working tirelessly in the office over the years to interact with small and minority businesses throughout the community. Through their actions, we have well over 65 workshops every year, mostly in this building, to bring the information to these firms. They do I can't even put words to play the great job that they do and the information they give. Matter of fact, they had a program today with SCDOT, where SCDOT came in here and had one-on-one counseling sessions with businesses to help them to understand how to do business with the South Carolina Department of Transportation and also get certified through the federal government. So our request tonight is to ask council for us to further expand the diversity initiative with the business development program.
Yes, sir.
I move that we take the recommendation that was just given by the procurement department to move this initiative forward with funding included.
The motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Darby. Any discussion? Mr. Quayle has his hand up.
Reading the action plan, it says that they're going to come back to council with recommendations.
Yes, sir, we're hoping to come back to you before the end of the calendar year with a resource requirement and a more fully fleshed out private sector, emphasizing business development on the private sector. I think we do a pretty good job encouraging minority business with the county, but the private sector opportunities are something I think needs to be strengthened, and we'll return to you with requests for additional resources soon.
So isn't that the time for a vote as opposed to now?
Mr. Pryor.
They need to have instructions to move forward before they can come back. That's why they're here today.
All right, well,
Yeah.
that's,
And that's why I
that
made the
wasn't clear to
motion.
me, but,
Yes. That's why I made the motion, Mr. Query, to give them direction to move forward.
Mr. Spears and Mr.
I guess
Sass.
I have the same question. I'm not sure I know exactly what we're moving forward on. And I don't think we had this presentation until just now. I don't think it was given to us beforehand, but was it?
No, sir, it was not.
So, and it said presentation, so I didn't think we were voting to actually do something, but I do support, again, it says, return to council with a recommendation.
Sir.
So I'm assuming we didn't get it just now. We didn't get a recommendation just now, that they're going to return to council with that. So I'm not sure what we're affirmatively voting on.
I believe, Mr. Pryor, and tell me if I'm wrong, I believe what we're doing here is a couple things. One, whether this council is going to embrace this concept or not, okay? If you recall, years ago, we had a program very similar to this that ended. And myself, Mr. Pryor, Mr. Darby, Senator Kempson, and others have been working on for months, trying to develop a program that would do what I feel are two very important things, and I think we all feel that. The two biggest reasons that small businesses don't get off the ground or fail are because, one, they don't know how to get through the government minutia, let's be quite frank, and two, they're underfunded. Those are the two major things in America that make businesses fail. I know because I've owned businesses that have failed. I've owned businesses that succeeded. The ones that I started in the beginning failed because even with my sense of government, I still didn't know exactly how to get through all the government regulations. Responding to RFPs, RFQs, they're very cumbersome and expensive to do, and they're very hard to do. I think what Mr. Talbert, Ms. Nichols, and others are doing here is giving an opportunity to teach folks how to respond to us in our RFPs. I think this is an amazing opportunity. I believe that what Mr. Pryor wants to do is to embrace this concept. We've got a staff of 6 that are sitting out in the audience already that can start hitting the ground running immediately to start understanding further details of what this means and how much this is going to cost to do and fully try to fund this program to make this a very successful thing. To steal Barrett's phrase, cradle to the grave.
So what is, Mr. Pryor, what is
Am I right?
your
Was I right?
motion for tonight? What action are we taking tonight?
We're taking action to give them authority to move forward. As the chairman just said, it's now, we have people already out there, that works for him. So we need to give them the opportunity to
Okay,
go
we're
out.
we're not approving a specific change in the program, and we're not approving funding for
That's going to
this
come back.
so-called specific change. We're just saying move forward.
Well, I
with-
think we're
Additional planning.
We're proving the concept that Ms. Nichols and Mr. Talbert have presented us, which is this new expanded program. That's what I think I'm voting for.
And that's what I'm voting for.
Okay.
With funding?
Yes.
How much funding? We haven't heard a word about any money, and this is the first time this thing's come in front of us.
Yes, sir.
I think that the original idea, as Barrett probably had it, was for him to explain to us, which is great, and I certainly do embrace this, and then come back later on and say, okay, y'all, this is what our plan is, and this is how much money we need. And then we vote on that then, which may come up in a couple of weeks or 4 weeks at the most, Barrett, but, I mean, I'm not gonna vote on something for funding when we don't even know what the funding is, what it's used for, how much it is. I think that vote is premature tonight.
Mr. Sass.
Part of my question got answered, but I guess what I was thinking, they're gonna come back with a plan and tell us how much it will cost. Is that right?
We have a plan in front of us. I think what?
There is a plan in front of us.
There's a plan in front of us and a staff that's willing to start implementing the plan. If there needs to be expansion and more
Then it will-
budget brought to us, then Mr. Buster obviously will have to bring that back.
Right.
But I mean, Mr. Talbert just had his entire staff stand up. And there will be, I'm sure there are going to need to be others added along the way. These folks are probably overworked as it is. So we'll need to add more folks and more resources to the program, and we'll do that as
As it comes back to us.
Roll back in the presentation to those exact plans. Know how much it cost?
That will come back to us. Mr. Suarez says he needs more additional personnel. Right now.
But you said your motion includes funding. We're approving
For
funding.
right now, yes.
So it's a blank check?
No, it's not a blank check. Right
Then how
now,
much-
Mr.
how much is
Talbot
it?
already has funding for these people, but when they come back in a week from now, 2 weeks from now, and says, hey, I need X, Y, and Z, that will come back to council.
If I may help, we are looking for affirmation that we're headed in the right
In the right
direction. And then we will return to you once the program is fully designed with a recommended funding level.
Ms. Condon.
So in fact, these are concepts, and they're going to be made a little more concrete with the plan that we're going to get to. This is absolutely, I think, wonderful, and I think council supports this. But you're saying we're going to see something more concrete with dollar signs attached to it
Fairly soon,
and
yes,
numbers.
ma'am.
Thank you. I think that, I look forward to seeing that.
But-
Because that's where this isn't really a full plan yet.
But to Mr. Pryor's point, it can start immediately.
Right.
With the resources we already have on the ground.
Already have. There's no need to
Yes.
wait and come back and says 2 weeks from now, we already have resources, we need to use what we have to move forward.
Any further questions?
This program should have been really funded years ago. It was, and then, it was, got cut out, so a budget was already there for this program.
I mean, I thought that they were doing this as is. They were working on this today, apparently, yes, but so I guess continue what you're doing until you come back to us and ask for some different funding.
Mr. Talbot, how long you think it'll take you to have additional numbers?
I will get with my staff, and we should be back with you by the end of the month.
By September 15th, November 15th, next meeting?
Perhaps give us 2 meetings.
All right.
Thank you.
But I don't want you to stop working with, right now, these are great, we need to continue, and the funding, in 2 weeks' time, when we come back at 2 meetings, and that all to be established, and we need to move forward, because, we find funding for whatever we want to do, when it's convenient,
Yep.
popular, to some. But this is very important, this is why I was talking to Mr. Buschamp, I met with him weeks ago, Mr. Darby and myself met, months ago. This doesn't pop up overnight.
No.
We look at this thing, we track it. Because when we go to meetings, and we have to go to these different organizations, they ask these questions, and we got to answer. Do we have a good program? Yes, we do. Could it be better? Absolutely. So I just don't want us to get in that sinkhole where we're satisfied with 26%. We could be expanding to 30, 33, whatever it takes. So we want to invest back, into the community.
And this is not
When you
just-
invest back in the community, you gain more taxes because people begin to start paying more taxes, and, businesses begin to expend it, so it's money coming back in, so it's a win-win situation.
This is not just, in my mind, not just a DBE program. This is an empowerment program.
It is.
This is empowering folks who don't understand how to start their own businesses and who don't understand how to get through the RFP government process and empowering them to have an equal footing with everybody else.
And Mr. Talbot, please do this quickly as you can. We got libraries coming up, that's about $110 million projects. We got other things coming up. We want to make sure that we get this, but don't wait. You can start, sending out these things, and these people can start coming to get training right now, right?
Right. Yeah. A lot of what we have up here was not written in the original plan, but
Okay.
staff, along with people from the community, we've already started implementing or in the process of implementing it. So it's not like we have waited. We take a proactive approach to
Thank
help
you.
these small businesses out.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Well, I just want to say, this council has really changed over the years, particularly since single-member districts came into existence. When Mr. Pryor and Mr. Knapp and I got here on county council, it was 0% diversity. 3 cents that African Americans got out of every dollar. And to say that we are now at 25%, that is something short of a miracle. And we are not satisfied with just 25%. It should be representational of the percentage of whatever minority within the county, and that is 33%. So again, this is something short of a miracle, and I wish that other cities and municipalities would follow our lead, and there would be greater employment. Because I don't know of one municipality here in Charleston County that can boast that they have 25%, in some situations up to 30%. So we're moving along the right line, and I hope that this council continues to be progressive. It hasn't been easy, but we still need to move forward, and thank this council for what we have done. Thank Mr. Talbot and Mr. Bustram and so many others for doing that which is right. I just want to say that for the record, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Darby. Anyone else? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Item 3, Social Services Building.
Mr. Chairman, don't we need executive sessions for 4 and 3? So can we do 5 and then?
Yes.
We need executive session for all 3, 4, and 5.
Do we? Mr. Dawson?
Members of council, item number 3 can and should be discussed publicly with regard to the staff's plan. There is a need for an executive session with regard to a lawsuit with Shakora Life Center that needs to be separate and apart from a discussion on what you may do with regard to the social services building. So I would ask that you keep those items separate. You're at liberty to have.
Executive session first.
Can we go to executive session on 4 and 5 and then come back and discuss 3 if needed?
Well, and Mr.
And
Pryor.
added, and I'd like to add also an item on the Core Life Center contract.
Mr. Dawson, how about explain exactly what you want the executive session to be for,
Be
sir?
happy to. So, members of council, there's 3 items that I think need to be discussed in the executive session that are matters covered by attorney-client privilege. The first involves a lawsuit with Shakora Life Center. The second matter involves the Mark Clark Expressway intergovernmental agreement with the state of, the SCDOT and the SIB. And the third item deals with what's on your agenda, item number 5, Fleet Landing property reverter. So there are 3 matters that need to be discussed in executive session covered by the attorney-client privilege. To the extent you're having a public presentation with the social services building, that is fine, but if you'd like to receive information from me
Yes.
first,
Yes.
then I'd be happy to do that, but I do want to keep those matters separate.
Is there a motion?
Move for executive session for the
Second.
3 items.
Motion and second on the floor. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? See you in a minute.
Just like you leave first from any room. She's like you leave first.
We'll call this meeting back to order. We are out of executive session. No motions were made, no action was taken. Item number 3, Social Services Building. Mr. Bustrand?
Yeah, our Capital Projects Director, Dan Chandler, is going to talk about an update with some potential recommendations on the social services building.
Update to the social services building that we've been working on. I'll go through potential tenants, the potential options for implementing the project, and some potential costs. Potential tenants, we broke this into 3 categories of potential tenants. We had the immediate needs tenants, which were the ones who are moving from the downtown facility into a new facility. Those have the most urgency. In August of this year, we were asked to meet with other social service agencies and gauge their interest in joining us in this venture and perhaps making a social hub out of this facility. And so over beginning about 6 weeks ago, we began contacting these agencies and having sit-down discussions with them to find out their needs. Those were the... Can you speak in your mic, please? We started off with the ones in blue there were were some of the new potential tenants. Those are the people that we provide space for now. The ones below that, and well, it's clear it didn't turn up in color, but anyway, those are the more state agencies as well as some nonprofits that we talked to. We sat down and spoke with those guys, and potentially we've come up with about 260,000 square feet during this effort. Some of the options to meet these needs would be the first option would be just to go ahead and build for our current needs, which would be Diotis and DHEC Health and Vital Records in the library. Option 2 would include the additional tenants, and that could be done in a couple of ways. One is go ahead and add them now and build now, and the other would be to plan for the future and use that as a phase 2. And there's also the possibility of a joint solution where we may be working with maybe the developer with the adjacent property owned by North Charleston to maybe come up with some mutually beneficial features and solutions. As far as potential cost and challenges, we have the option 1, which is the base tenants, would be about $39 million. Option 2, for the additional tenants, that's to be determined. We still need to have additional meetings to further define the scopes and how much space they need and to work agreements and commitments. And some of the challenges for the site that we're looking at Pine Haven would be land acquisition, some parking, and also the schedule. You know, the option 1 tenants really, we're looking to try to get those out of the downtown area so MUSC can move ahead with their projects. And one of the other challenges would be if we add additional tenants at this point, there's subject to be additional property tax increases. And we would like...
Mr. Swears?
Yes, sir.
Keith, why additional property tax increases if we add tenants? That's because we're building more building, but how would those numbers work out? I mean, would it be a net loss?
If some of the building is occupied not by government services but by taxable entities, part of the building would be taxable.
Okay, that we would have to pay. We would have to pay property tax on it.
If we were to build a building and include the additional tenants, we would have to borrow additional money. We don't know exactly what that price is, but it's probably going to be more than what the first phase would be. You don't have the capacity within our existing debt service to afford repaying more money, so that would result in a tax increase in the debt service millage if you went with additional tenants.
And what would compel us to go with additional tenants? Anybody?
Council's desire.
So the idea, Walt, that there would be a building that would be suitable for what we need now with the ability to expand. Is that what you're trying to get?
We're trying to, the whole entire site will be expandable. First phase is what we actually need now. Second phase is those additional customers. And when you build that second building, phase 2, additional square footage, it will run that 39 million you see if you want to build everything now way up. But we don't have a figure for that, for the additional square footage, but it's going to be much, much higher than the that 39 million.
Okay.
I'm still not understanding though. So why would we build more building and have additional tenants and have a net cost?
I don't think we would.
I'm missing something.
Again, that's the desire of council. I apologize for not understanding the first question, but that's why council will direct us, because the idea, of course, for the building across the street was a social services hub with many more tenants in it. If council wanted to pursue that model, the building would have to be bigger and have more tenants.
Okay, I guess I understand.
So that being said, what we would recommend, what staff would recommend would be to move forward on the base tenant option. And we would issue an RFQ for AE services, and we would include qualifications for the library design, which would be incorporated into this, as well as an outreach community input, so a firm with that capability. And we would design to accommodate a future expansion for option 2 tenants if it was ever council's desire to do that. And we would also go through and verify and firm up commitments and space requirements and estimated costs for option 2 tenants so that we could get a good handle on the estimated cost. And also, we would like to ask authorization to allow staff to negotiate and acquire the additional property in Haven to allow this facility.
To allow the additional tenants or to allow the facility, period?
Well, the site would work much better if we can acquire that property. Adjacent property owners, as well, there's also some state property on the site.
I mean, unless I'm misunderstanding, it sounds like this option 2 tenants is kind of speculative development, and we're not in that business.
I'd like to make a motion. That is that we allow staff to move forward to issue the RFQ only.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Only no property.
All right.
Mr. Quayle, the only issue with that is in the middle of the Phase 1 project is land owned by the SCDOT, which would need to be acquired. I don't think that was... Mr. Smalls, do you want to explain the land?
Right. What we would like to do is to make this a nice smooth the project is to acquire the SCDOT property as well as the property on the.
I mean, can't you do the RFQ with the assumption that the property is going to be acquired?
Yes, sir, we can do that.
Mr. Quayle, couldn't you do the first and
Negotiation.
fourth bullet points? and
Exactly, that, I think that would be,
what we need?
Negotiate.
yes, sir.
Well, the fourth bullet point says that we're authorizing staff to negotiate and acquire property. I don't want to authorize staff to be able to go out and buy property without it coming back to council.
We will, it has to come back.
It would just be negotiation to come back.
Well, then,
It has to come back.
they can negotiate, but not to actually acquire. I still think number one, just with the assumption that the property is
one
going
and four is
to
good.
get acquired, what we need, I think that's plenty for right now.
The motion on the floor, is there a second?
I'll second it.
The second by Mr. Sass. Any further discussion?
Well, I'd like to propose an amendment, I guess, to add number 4, but I don't guess Mr. Quayle is going to accept that. Is the project viable without that property?
Mr. Smalls?
The site will be tight if, without that. And that gives us more flexibility for parking and just to get a more better circulation on the site. And then when you look at car or bus coming in, dropping, and this is going to be a social service area, and we need the bus route to come in through it. It will just make the site more usable by the customer.
Yeah, I don't see tying staff's hands on sorting this thing out.
Can you go back to the slide that shows this slide?
Flood here.
It's at the end. The last slide is how we have it.
There you go.
Yep. Take it up higher, Dan. Make it maximize the site.
And I'm not saying that we don't buy the property. I'm just saying that the first step doesn't require us to have the property either under contract or negotiated, that we can do the RFP without it or RFQ without it. I'm talking to the rest of the council too. Walt?
Okay, I was ready to.
No, I wasn't just talking to you.
Knowing that the DOT property is between parts of our property, I think it's important for us as we're trying to determine the cost of this moving forward to know what DOT is willing to negotiate. So I'd really ask you to consider.
That's fine, I'll
that.
accept his amendment.
Thank you.
That was my concern. I wanted to know what were the plans.
As long as it's coming back to council for approval and the purchase price and everything else.
Chandler, just for everyone's edification, can you now go back to the staff recommendation slide? Okay. So the motion on the floor as amended is for bullet point 1 and bullet point 4. That's correct, Mr. Swears, you find that correct?
That's correct.
All right, Mr. Sass, you seconded the motion, you find that? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. 2 nays. Ayes have it. Item number 4, Mark Clark, no action was taken in executive session. Is there any action you need from us, Mr. Dawson? No, sir. All right, item number 5, Fleet Landing Property Reverter, request to release. What is the pleasure of the body?
We have a proposed motion.
Mr. Sass?
I'd like to make a motion, sir.
Yes, sir.
I move the county council release the reversionary interest it has on the property located at 186 Concord Street in downtown Charleston where the restaurant Fleet Landing is currently located, subject to the terms discussed in executive session.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion and second on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes.
No.
2 nays. Ayes have it. All right. We will now move to the public comment portion of our agenda.
Chairman, if I may intervene prior to the public comment, sir?
Mr. Darby, I'm being corrected. We have 2 public hearings. I'm sorry. You know what? You can go ahead, Mr. Darby.
Well, prior to my getting to my remarks, I see that we have a student here by the name of Miss Ashley Planter. She is shadowing moi, and she is the daughter of one of my former students, Mr. Rico Planter.
Where's Rico?
And she is from First Baptist, where the incomparable Principal Mullins. Tommy Mullins there. Good to see you again, my dear. And I hope that you are successful in all of your endeavors. And I apologize to you for the time that I had to whip your dad in the restroom at Morningside Middle School. You can't put your hands on children anymore, but back at that time, ma'am, just ask him. And you're much prettier than he is, too.
Or two.
Yeah. I have been vacillating and equivocating over some words I wanted to say for quite some time now. And because of the acquired debility that I have about 4 or 5 years ago, I don't have the ability to speak impromptu as I used to because of my injury. So I have to write down my words to actually read. But there's something that I really want to say tonight. Because Dr. King is still right, there comes a time when silence is betrayal. And I'd like to start. Because of the Summy affair, there are some of us who have delved into the drum major instinct syndrome. The drum major instinct is a desire of which we all should have, to lead the parade, to be up front, to be first, to be important, to achieve distinction, to surpass others. That is the drum major instinct, to lead the parade. But there's a weakness of the drum major instinct, and that is everyone is not given the chance to lead, to shine, to be up front. What has the drum major instinct has to do with the Summy affair. When it first came into existence, I did not want to believe it. But unfortunately, I found out it was true. Councilman Pryor wanted to come out first and foremost to make a statement. I told him no. Again, he wanted to make a statement because it had become personal, and again, I said no. This is not the time. Let others speak out first. Why must the two of us on council always be the first to speak out? Give others a chance. And Mr. Pryor heeded my advice, much to his own chagrin. Mr. Summy, what was said was ugly, indefensible, insensitive, unkind, unwise. And Mr. Pryor was hurt, disappointed, and saddened. From what I gathered, he has been more than a brother to you, but a friend. And there comes a time when a friend is closer than a brother, particularly when one does not have a brother. When I first met Mr. Pryor, he has been his own man and nothing less than his own man. He has stood at times when I did not stand. I highly respect him for that, and I have never witnessed a politician, a community activist, who has a bigger heart than Mr. Pryor. The words to describe Ms. Johnson were also inapplicable. In terms of her desire to help her community, she has on blinders, and nothing is going to deter her from helping those on Johns and James Island, irrespective of the feathers she ruffles. She has the compassion for all. Then there were the other council persons of whom you spoke ill. In all of us, there are various idiosyncrasies we do not like in each other. But as a full council, we all do our part and best to help all of the county. And I ask that you do not go down this road again, that you do greater things than you have done in the past to assist this council, this county, and the municipalities within. Let me say for the record and publicly that I strongly condemn the words you committed to your fellow council persons You were wrong. I am not a vindictive person, but I am constructively condemning your words because out of constructive condemnation, growth can occur because I am still expecting great things from you, particularly within the arena of race. When I received a call from one of the major local leaders, of whom I have great respect and admiration, he asked if I were going to defend Mr. Summey. I stated absolutely not. I cannot defend that, and never would I defend such descriptives. However, I will defend what he is not. He is not a racist. Perhaps Facebook tomorrow will be filled with scathing remarks because of the rage and anger within the black community of the present-day prejudices we face. The term racist is a label I do not use lightly. I reserve that term for the David Dukes, the neo-Nazis, the skinheads, the Aryan Nation, the Klansmen. Again, I am not defending what Mr. Summey said. Let me make that perfectly clear. I am defending, however, that he is not a racist. Why would I say such? When the Confederate flag was at high noon, he had within him the drum major instinct whereby he led the county in its efforts to have the Confederate flag removed from the State House. And when a white indigenous Southerner is going to take the lead in such a divisive symbol, I do not think one can use the term racist to describe him. When he became a member of Charleston County Council, I think diversity was just about 10 or 12%. It is now 25% as policy, and in some instances, it reaches 30%, and surely 3 African-American politicians alone could not have attained those percentages had there not been votes to assist, as Mr. Summey was one of those who voted in favor of. Surely this is not emblematic of a racist. His judgment, his words, his insensitivity were brutally misguided, but he is no racist. I'm going to ask my brothers and my sisters, yes, bring your anger, bring your disappointment, bring your frustration, because you are bringing out the best in the tradition of the greatness of America, which is the right to dissent. This country would not be as strong as it is if we do not have the right to dissent. But I will ask that you go further to seek out a plan with Mr. Summey and vice versa to resolve the problem which allows for productive growth to occur, and we can do it at 4743 Ezekiel Avenue. And finally, I strongly advise Mr. Summey to meet with full council to get this elephant out of the room, that the business of council may go on without the quagmire we presently find ourselves. Again, I ask Mr. Pryor to please hold his tongue until others get the chance. And that is why we were silent on the issue. No less, no more. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. We will now start our public hearings. Madam Clerk.
Notice is hereby given that Charleston County Council will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 1st in council chambers regarding the Parkers Ferry Community Plan.
All right, this is the Parkers Ferry Community Plan. It contains 2 documents, the actual plan itself and comprehensive plan amendments to adopt the community plan by reference. This effort was started by Councilmember Johnson, and the purpose of it is threefold: to preserve the cultural heritage of the community, increase the flexibility to subdivide and develop the property that was lost when our ordinance changed back in 2001, and to improve access to public services and employment and training opportunities for residents. So Councilmember Johnson and staff worked very hard with the residents of the area, and I do have to commend the residents of the area. They showed up every single meeting. That was one of the best attended meetings every time. We had probably upwards of 100 or so folks at every single meeting. So we worked with them first to figure out where the Parkers Ferry area was located. It's shown on this map, the general area shown in brown within the county here, and a zoom-in area on the map to your right. It mainly consists of pockets of small lots. We did exclude larger timber holdings and then any lands that were in conservation easements. There are 3 phases that are involved in this plan. The first was identifying the community needs and visions. That has been completed. We're in the second phase now, which is development of the plan and the adoption of it, so we're in the adoption process. And once it is adopted, the community plan implementation will start, and the first step will be the creation of an overlay zoning district to fix some of the zoning issues that the community has identified. So a little bit about the identification of the community needs and visions. We started this back in 2013. We gave a community survey at the meeting. Every single person that took that survey completed it and gave it back to us before they left, which is, I've never had a 100% return rate on a survey before, but that happened at that meeting, which was great. We took the results of the survey back, sort of compiled them and took them back to the public and asked them if what we heard or what we thought we heard was correct. And once we got that confirmed, we were ready to move on. While that was going on, we were also in the 5-year update of the comprehensive plan, where we were able to get a new future land use designation that met the community needs, adopted as part of the comprehensive plan future land use map. So the next phase was developing the community plan. We had 4 additional community meetings in 2015 and 2016 to do this. It was based mainly upon the community needs that came out of the survey, and we came up with some implementation strategies working with the residents. They're refined into 5 broad categories: the planning and zoning needs, employment and economic development needs, public services, public facilities, and community-specific needs. And we took that back to the community in August to find out if that is what the community wanted to see happen, and we had an overwhelming amount of support for it. And so we took that to Planning Commission in October. And as you'll see, they unanimously recommended approval. So the next step, once this is adopted, is to implement it. The strategies that are contained in the plan are shown here. Planning and zoning strategies, the first step, which we've already started to draft, is an overlay zoning district to address the planning and zoning needs. And then some of the other items and strategies are sort of outside the wheelhouse of planning and zoning, but it's working with the community to identify who can help them and then empower them to go work with those organizations and agencies to address some of those needs. Employment and economic development strategies, things like looking at ways to incentivize new development or redevelopment. Public works and transportation strategies, and some of this is already being addressed for public works. A drainage study. There have been a lot of sidewalks improvements in the area. Public service strategies, looking at funding opportunities to improve the property that was purchased by the Willtown Improvement Organization. Community-specific strategies, coordinating with local organizations to work on affordability of housing. As I said, the plan was presented to the public back in August at a community meeting and then again at last week's Planning Commission meeting. And even though our October meeting was moved from October 10th to October 24th because of Hurricane Matthew, we still had a bunch of people come out and show their support for this project. They also brought with them a petition that had 160 signatures in support of the project. So the Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend adoption of the community plan and the comprehensive plan amendments that are related to it. And this map just shows you where, in red, some of the folks that signed the petition are located. So I am happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Johnson.
I don't have a question, but I do want to thank the staff very much for continuing with this project, and I'm sure that the residents are happy that we're moving forward on this, and so just want to thank you for your efforts and certainly for all of the residents in the area for participating and showing their interest.
Yeah, thank you.
Got to have people showing their interest in order to make things happen.
If anyone from the audience would like to address us on this matter, please come forward. Give us your name and address. We'll give you 2 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Willie Johnson. I'm from the Parkers Ferry Willtown Community Center. And I'm just one of the members here. We have some more people. Would y'all stand from to Parkers Ferry, Willtown Community Center. We have a lot more people, but some of them at work couldn't make it. But I just want to say thanks to Sister Johnson for the hard work and the staff here that come out and support us. And we're willing to move forward with this because it's been a long struggle. And Charleston County is big, but we on the end of it and seem like we get the last piece of bread that comes through. And we kind of tired of waiting. I know I am. You have people here 70, 80, 90 years old, and we don't even have a playground in the area. A lot of things that we don't have. I'm not going to get all into that tonight. The transportation is very bad. The sidewalks, we don't have. I've been here for years, but I look in other areas, and I mean, it's like overnight thing. You know, I'm quite sure everyone here knows how Mount Pleasant is growing. Beans Ferry over here. Within 3 years, they got most everything they want, and we still don't have a gas station. You got to go 20 miles to get to a Walmart. You got to go 10 or 12 miles to get to a food line. No gas stations. What are the county going to do for us? And like I say, Congressman Johnson and the staff has been doing a great job, but we need some more support. And the small businesses, we can do this, but we need help. And we're just looking for some support from the county of Charleston. Our tax dollars count too. So we just want to rally around each and every one here, not only the Willtown, all of the communities, but this community has been left aside. The children don't have no places to go. Senior citizens don't have any places and stuff. So we're just looking for some support from the county. And thank you all for doing such a good job. But we're willing to move forward with this right now, as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else in the audience like to address us on this matter? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next public hearing, Madam Clerk.
This is a public hearing regarding a request to rezone property located at 1756 Central Park Avenue on James Island.
Thank you. As mentioned, this property is at 1756 Central Park Avenue. The request before you is to rezone from single-family residential 4 to the residential office zoning district. The property is approximately 0.67 acres in size and located in Council District 9. Prior to this request, no zoning map amendments have been made for the property. The property is located on the northern part of James Island. The future land use recommendation is urban-suburban mixed use. And the current zoning, as I mentioned, is single-family residential 4. The property does contain a single-family residence and a detached garage right now. And adjacent properties are located in the unincorporated Charleston County, are zoned R4. And you can see in white a lot of the properties adjacent to this are located in the city of Charleston. And they are zoned either single-family residential or diverse residential for the most part and contain residential uses. Here's an aerial view of the property. You can see the house and the garage by the trees here. Here's another view. This is Central Park Road. This is the house on the property and the garage. And then this is a photo of the house that's at the rear of the property.
Ms. Condon.
Can you go
I'm
back
sorry.
2 slides?
Sure.
On the other side of the road, are we seeing multifamily?
Those are condos. And then this is the movie theater on James Island.
Okay, and so are those 2 and 3 story then? And what are
I
we
think
seeing
they're
there?
3-story.
Okay, thank you.
Those are in the city of Charleston also.
It certainly is helpful as we look across and show both the jurisdictions.
Sure. So this is some of the uses allowed in the current zoning R4 compared to the residential office requested zoning. And because this is not consistent with the comprehensive plan recommendation, staff recommended disapproval of the rezoning request. And last week at the Planning Commission meeting, Planning Commission did recommend approval with a vote of 6-1. And we did notifications of area property owners and advertised in the Post and Courier, and a sign was posted on the property.
Anyone from the audience like to address the body on this matter, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll go to our next public hearing. Madam Clerk?
This is a public hearing on a request to rezone a portion of the property located at 1649 Yellow House Road on Wadmalaw.
Thank you. This next request is a request to rezone a portion of property from agricultural preservation AG 15 to agricultural residential AGR. The request is for a portion of property that's about 9.35 acres in size, of which only 1.57 acres are as highland, and this is located in Council District 8. The applicant has actually submitted a plat, and it's in process and in an approvable state. They are requesting to rezone this marsh portion of property because it's of a different zoning than the highland property along here. You can see in this map, it kind of shows it a little bit more clearly. These three properties are the properties that are zoned AGR. The applicant has acquired this marsh portion, and they are requesting to rezone the portion that's AG 15 to AGR to allow them to then process the plat and redefine the property lines. And so this portion of the property is about 4.36 acres of critical area and 1 acre of highland, and that's going to be joined to this parcel 2 that you see here. This middle portion of marsh and highland is approximately 0.32 acres of highland and 2.34 acres of critical area, and it is going to be joined with parcel 4. And the last little bit here, that's about 0.25 acres of highland and 1.08 acres of critical area, and they are proposing to join that to 216.
When you say join, what do you mean?
They're going to abandon this property line, and the marsh here that's currently zoned AG 15 that they're requesting to rezone to AGR will be joined with the AGR portion here. So they're redefining the property lines to require that the marsh is attached to the highland. If
It's
that
the
makes
same
sense.
owner?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions about that?
Ms. Conlon?
So by putting it together, it's going to give them more opportunity to build on the highland by being able to count in this highland that's down here.
Their highland for the total area will increase slightly.
And isn't that going to be the net effect, is they'll have more buildable opportunities inside what is currently AGR?
It will increase the total number of highland acres in their property. Yeah. Yep. The whole point of the rezoning, though, is because they're different zoning districts currently, and we can't record a plat that has different zoning districts. So,
The three parcels are all owned by the same person?
yes.
Okay.
Yep, and the same person has acquired the marsh as well. So.
Anyone from the audience like to address the body on this matter? Please come forward. Seeing none, we will move on to, yes, sir?
Before us on November 15th, right?
Yes.
Both of these items.
Yes, sir.
Planning and Public Works.
Seeing none, we will turn over to public comments. Madam Clerk?
Rich Thomas.
Trying to figure out how to set it right.
Rich Thomas, 4360 Bohicket Road, Johns Island. During the citizens' comments portion of the Charleston County Council meeting on Tuesday, October 18th, another citizen asked some important questions. Council could not respond at that time. However, we have not yet learned the answer to these questions before our vote on the half-cent sales tax referendum on November 8th, next Tuesday. Questions are, under what statute or ordinance does the Charleston County Council chairman have the authority, 1, to commit the county to a lawsuit against a state agency and to burden the payers of both county and state taxes with the costs of that lawsuit? Related to this question, should this topic not be the subject of public discussion and input before a vote by full council? Number 2, to unilaterally allocate and commit hundreds of millions of dollars of uncertain potential tax revenues to projects that another state agency is required to fund. Also related to this question, should not these proposed allocations be the subject of public discussion and input before a vote by full council once a funding source might become available? Number 3, unilaterally to revise the wording of ordinances without discussion or approval by council in an amount of hundreds of millions of dollars especially after the public and council have discussed the ordinance and council has voted 3 times on the matter. On another matter, another question. What exactly is the county purchasing with the $500,000 that was moved from an existing half-cent tax road repair fund to completion of an environmental assessment for the 526 extension? And this project is to be completed by the end of the year.
Mr. Thomas, your 2 minutes is up. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on these important matters before council.
Thank you.
Mary Smith. Mary Smith. John Singletary. Oh, come back to him. James Johnson.
Good evening, council. Thank you for allowing me to address the council. To Mr. Darby, I do respect your words, and I respect you for a long time. It seems like to me, you are the only one on council talking about Mr. Summey's mishap. How do the other council members feel about what Mr. Elliott Summey says, especially to me, the 43% blacks that he misused? So I'd like to hear from the other council members also. You are elected officials, and you understand the words of Elliott Summey affect the way the council operates. So we, as the people in this audience and in Charleston County, would like to know how every council member feel about those statements. And again, to Mr. Darby, we've had Emmanuel 9, we had Walter Scott, and those families asked for forgiveness. And they forgive the people that misuse their family. How many times are we going to sit here as black folks and ask for forgiveness without actions? Look at our community. No actions in our community. Our community is deplorable. We got drugs. We got crime. Our homes are falling down. And we're going to keep asking for forgiveness with no actions. What I'm going to do is ask the people not to vote on a half-cent sales tax. What we want from that sales tax is $75 to $100 million to rebuild our community, the black community. We want affordable housing. We want drug rehabilitation. We want crime prevention. We want everything that's in the white community. Enough is enough.
10 seconds.
Enough is enough. We want it unless the half-cent sales tax will be voted down. The council playing with $2 billion. We got no money, hardly any money from the 12 years ago from that half-cent sales tax. All went in, 97% of it went in the white community. Nothing in the city on the black community. Enough is enough.
2 minutes is up, Mr.
Thank
Johnson.
you very much.
Thank you.
Enough is enough. We're not taking it anymore. Thank you.
Lewis Smith.
Good evening. Tonight I've come before you to actually represent Mr. Pryor, Mr. Darby, and Ms. Johnson, and the citizens of North Charleston. To forgive is hard to do. What was said was reprehensible to our community. I can't forgive I'm not going to call you a racist. I'm going to say you let the citizens down as being an elected official, which is completely different than calling you a racist. Also, we have to look at a lot of things here, and we've been doing some research, Mr. Summey. And when you said that you came into a district which was 43%, and you changed that district to make it represent more of you, we believe, and we are going to be filing the lawsuit, we believe that you have violated the Civil Rights Act, Section 2. And with that, we are going to be coming after you, sir. You have lost trust in the community. We don't trust you. You've jeopardized major things that's going throughout the community. We need the 526 road. We need all these things, and you have literally divided a community. We were coming together, as I said last week. We were coming together as a community. You have opened these scars, we're old school scars. We don't need that in this day and age. And we have some magnificent county councilmen. Mr. Pryor, you know, you and I, we go around and around. But in the end, we want the right thing. And Mr. Darby, you know that. And Ms. Johnson, we know that. But I have to come here in front of you today and say, enough is enough. We are tired. And we are going to make changes, Mr. Summey. The lawsuit is coming. And I want you to look at Section 2. The Civil Rights Act has been gutted, but I really want you to look at Section 2 in that, and you are in violation, in my opinion.
Thank you.
And we are going to get rid of you.
Thank you. Your 2
Period.
minutes is up, sir.
Thank you.
Jonathan Thrower.
I'm not understanding why everybody sound like they're scared to call this guy racist. Racism is what you do, not in the open, but it's what you do behind closed doors. And how we uncover it is by things like this happening. I mean, we talk about, oh, well, he fought for the Confederate flag to come down. That's only because they wanted to appease black people in the city because they thought we were going to riot. The only time that they want to come to us talking about peace and civility is when they think we're going to tear something up. Look at the meeting they had yesterday. Oh, well, we need to keep the city calm. Or, we need to make sure people don't riot. What do you think is going to happen or would happen if you let somebody like Officer Slager off? People are frustrated. People are angry. The National Action Network and the NAACP, these groups don't have any more leverage in the streets of Charleston. Nobody's listening to them anymore. It's a young group of individuals who are out here fighting in the streets and fighting to save our communities. And we have to come down here and talk to people like you, and it really frustrates us and makes us angry. And that's what we need to be dealing with right now. And then another thing that really gets us upset is when nobody wants to hold this man accountable. The sheriff comes to me when I first walk in the door. What does he tell me? Oh, young man, you need to quiet down. You need to be easy today. He wants me to hold my tongue and to be mindful of what I say, and he wants me to be held accountable, but then we can't hold you accountable. It seems like it's a double standard, and we're tired of this double standard. Why are you scared of me? I don't have as much power as you or the sheriff, but he wants me to be quiet, but then we supposed to sit back and let you do whatever you want to do to us, and we frustrated, and we will not do that. Yeah, we don't want to be disrespectful, but the thing is, how can you expect respect when you don't even give us respect? So if we have to disrespect you, then we will disrespect you until you learn how to respect us.
DeMcElveen.
Yes, I won't do any cursing today, but Sheriff Al Cannon talked to me too. We had a good conversation in the hallway, but I will say this. When it comes to National Action Network and the NAACP, it's irritating that y'all figure that they have something that they can control us or do anything. Even with Mr. Pryor, Darby, I respect y'all, but I have a lot of y'all constituents that talk about Ms. Johnson that's over the roads and everything, that she's not handling her business. I did a lot of research, and y'all are dropping the ball, and I don't even know whether to say get Sammy down, because I don't know if y'all going to do what y'all got to do. I'm going to give you an applause, Mr. Darby, by what you said, but you're not doing anything. Look at our communities. You see what I'm saying? You ain't doing nothing. No, I mean, come on. You see what I'm saying? And when y'all, Mr. Cannon, I'm going to say this, when y'all go to National Action Network and them, they have ran their course. If y'all got anything that y'all want to do, y'all need to sit down with us. The people that have been that want to get incorporated, that know that the joke has been on us. You see what I'm saying? When it comes to media, rap music, everything that really controls what's going on. You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of truth of what Sammy said about the people that he said about when you really look at it. I'm not a Hillary supporter. Sometimes people don't really know how to come things across. Because when I go on James Island, where I'm from, and know how they're really being, things are really being done, and how Ms. Johnson do things for the white sector, what he said about Mr. Pryor, what he said about Mr. Darby, got one of the biggest high schools. These are things that are true, but just like Trump, he didn't word it the right way. And I'm sorry I had to take it to that direction, but right is wrong is wrong. I want my people to have something. Every week, black kids are dying. I have my own GED program. I try everything I do to help people, but
5
I
seconds,
see
Mr.
that I fear people. And I want people to know that I am trying to be somebody and help my community. You see what I'm saying? And I feel that the black people on council are dropping the ball.
2 minutes is up,
If
Mr.
they
Malcolm.
want somebody to get down, I'm with my people, but they dropping the ball. And like I can say again, Darby, that was a good speech that you said, but you waited till we packed the house and all that to say that. You see what I'm saying? So it's all for nothing.
We can. No, I can't see that far.
Thank you, Council. I'm Ed Bryant, for those of you who don't know, President of the North Charleston Branch NAACP. Been that for about 4 years. Let me just back up a few minutes and talk about something between the NAACP and National Action Network and concerned citizens of North Charleston. This council is seated here because of the fact the NAACP brought the lawsuit in order to get the single-member districts in this particular body to have minority representation on this board, okay? The NAACP brought that suit, and Citizens of North Charleston brought that suit. That's why Mr. Darby is there, Ms. Johnson is there, Mr. Pryor is there, okay? And the rest of the members as well, okay? We've done that. We've been there. We had a meeting with the Sheriff's Department. Let me say this to you. The Sheriff's Department does not dictate what NAACP does. The Sheriff's Department does not dictate what National Action Network does, okay? It recognizes us because we've been in organization since 1909, and the same individuals that are talking tonight are young people. I was that same person probably about 20 years ago, because I didn't think NAACP did anything either. But here I am standing as the president of a local branch, okay, for a number of years, doing the same kind of thing that people had put in place and put the parameters around, that we can have that kind of relationship with law enforcement, the community, education, the school district, and everything that goes on in this state, from the Confederate flag coming down till it going to the bottom. We are not trying to hold any young group down. Black Lives Matter, I support them 100%. Girls Rock, I support it 100%. And any other young group that's organized, that put themselves together, and you guys don't necessarily say, we out against this. You're not against anything. What you need to do is to be having an organizational structure. and have your own agenda so the sheriff can make contact with you and invite you to the meeting. You should have been to the meeting just like we were, okay? To be there to discuss the kinds of things that's going to happen in this particular trial and what's going to go on in Charleston County. I applaud your input. I applaud your recognition. But we are not the back door that you might want to talk about when it comes to whether issues are being changed in this community and in this country based on the backs of people who have put their lives on the line for a struggle for you and everybody else in this country. Thank you.
Amen.
Sean Middleton.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
I might have to trash this because y'all limited us to 2 minutes, so I got to make it quick. Got a couple of things I want to respond to, though. On the NAACP and National Action Network not being dictated by the sheriff. Let me tell you something. The white power structure dictates y'all because y'all like money more than y'all like people. You understand me? And we calling y'all out because we know what you stand for. I just called the elder out on Facebook today. You understand? Us youngins know what you stand for. We've been watching you for years. We have no respect for you. And like I told y'all, y'all got one of two choices. Merge with us or watch us dissolve you.
And wait. Oh.
It's his time. Me and you can talk in private. But your organization...
Elder,
I
Mr.
didn't
Johnson,
interrupt you when
this
you
is
talk.
this
You
is
have
his
respect,
time.
sir.
This
You
is
have
his time.
respect. Okay, now...
This is his time. Mr. Middleton, this is your time.
Yeah, do I get my minutes back from...
You got the pause button on, sir.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. You all right guy.
You sure?
Mr. Darby, the thing that you said about the Confederate flag removal. Now, I have a certain reverence for you that I don't have for many people because you're one of my first teachers, and you, in the beginning, taught me a lot about the black struggle and civil rights movement. So, while I may disagree with you, I'll disagree with you respectfully.
Yes, sir.
Any racist can march against the Confederate flag. Joe Rowley marched to Columbia to remove the Confederate flag, but yet he ran the people out of North Charleston. Out of Charleston, city of Charleston. Keith Summey petitioned against it too, but earlier he wanted a Confederate monument right there in North Charleston. So it doesn't matter if you remove the Confederate flag so long as the power structure that's keeping you in power and allowing you to oppress other people is in place. If I were a smart white supremacist, I'd say take the flag down. I'm still making my money and I'm oppressing people. So him petitioning against the Confederate flag is not enough for me to believe that man's not a racist, because he said so many things on those tapes, and I can't go through it because my time's up, but sometimes you got to look at the words and actions of men. You got to look at what's going on in North Charleston. You got to look at what's going on in this county. The black population, relatively, the relativity of the black population is continually shrinking. And he admits on tape that there's 43 people a day moving into this county. You understand? While he's gentrifying our neighborhoods and pushing us out, he's building houses for these immigrants from other cities and states. And instead of educating our people so they can get those jobs at Boeing, he's giving it to other people. If you want us to believe that you're not a racist, educate our people. Educate our people so they can get some of these jobs. If you're going to bring companies down there, let him know that the people come with the land. Hire us. Help us stop being poor people. As soon as you get rid of the poverty, the crime goes away. That's all I got to say.
Johnson? Okay.
Mr. Singletary, you were out when we called your name. Would you like to go ahead, sir? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is John Singletary, 4321 Waterview Circle. First thing I'd like to do is we've got a resolution that we'd like to submit to the council, and we're going to submit it so that the public can later read it. And we've got one for each of the members.
Give it to Mr. Lucas right
And
now.
it's from the National Action Network, the NAACP, and the Concerned Citizens Alliance. And the first paragraph reads simply, whereas the recent referendum placed on the ballot for the citizens to vote in Charleston County was improperly and illegally placed upon the ballot, we desire to remove it as it was, should have been void from the very beginning because South Carolina statutory laws were violated. And namely, we're talking about 813-700, dealing with the fact that we had 2 people to abstain in the third voting, which should not happen in the council, and unless they had something that dealt with a financial interest. And then we had the chair to vote when he has a financial interest. So it's in there if you'd like to read it. Concerning the minority business program, it was insulting what was just done. For you to bring a program to try and use city funds to shelter the comments that were made by the chair so that it can then quiet the black community down, which is all that was. If the program left with justification, it needed to be brought back with justification, and there was no justification. To my understanding, there has been several meetings, and the organization that originally was talked about in bringing that minority business program back was simply double-crossed. Tonight, they found out for the first time, just like the council found out for the first time, that they wanted you to vote on something and not even tell you what the finances in the budget was. That was underhanded, and it was as insulting as the comments that were made earlier. To say that we should stand by and allow the council to use public funds in order to help pacify our people because of the comments made by the chair, I would think that the council has better sense than that. Thank you.
Jesse Williams?
Jesse Williams, Constitution Avenue, North Charleston. Thank you for letting me address the council. I want to read a passage from one of my heroes, I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King Jr. This is from the speech he gave in 1963. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. And with this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. I just hope and pray that this will come to pass still, and that even with the half-cent sales tax that's been going out, information, that those funds will be able to go to a lot of the communities in Charleston County, all the communities. That's my prayer. Thank you.
William Gilmore? Iris Wilson?
Good evening. First of all, Sheriff Cannon, you know who most of those younger people are back there. You've talked to some of them this evening. Please work on bringing them to the table. That's one way of resolving a lot of issues. I wasn't going to do this, but I think Mr. Darby, I was totally offended by your presentation. Where have you been? I was just flabbergasted. All of this time and all of the anger that has been felt in the community, how do you come off advising, especially the African American members of this council, to be quiet when it relates to issues of race, especially to this degree, as egregious as this is? No one should ever request or demand your silence. Issues of race such as this demand that you speak up, just the opposite. That drum major part of it brought you back to Martin Luther King's speech. That wasn't Martin Luther King. That was nothing like what he stood for. Mr. Summy, I came here specifically to address you. And I want to say, I'm going to read this because my time is halfway up. You introduced us to, and confirmed to some of us who the real you were. And I chose the word defraud. You defrauded the voters of District 3, especially Democrats and African Americans. To defraud is to deprive someone of something by deception or fraud, and is usually associated with the synonyms of cheat, swindle, cousin. Defraud stresses depriving one of his or her rights and usually connotes deliberate pervasion of the truth, or swindle implies large-scale cheating or misrepresentation or abuse of confidence. And cousin is to mislead by means of trick or fraud. I even went to the King James Version dictionary because you mentioned your faith in one of your speeches.
10 seconds, please.
And it says to deprive of rights, either obtaining something by deception or artifice, or by taking something wrongfully without the knowledge or consent of the owner, to cheat.
5 seconds, please.
Yes, you defrauded the voters. There's a penalty for voter fraud, and Mr. Sami, I think you should start serving that penalty by stepping down.
Marvin Paisley.
I think he left.
Okay. Christian Du Bois.
Good evening. I guess it's good night, basically. I appreciate you allowing me to address the county council. I really don't have anything written down. I am a business owner here in Charleston, and I know that some people came here and I just heard things in the wind. People in the community, like, we feel what's going on in the community. Maybe, and actually looking from the outside, looking from out here, you guys don't give a clear representation of what this county is about. It's only three black people up there, and that's crazy. Even when the lady was talking just now, I don't know your name, sir, but I see you guys tapping and talking to one another, which is that was kind of like very disrespectful. I saw you doing it personally over there. Makes no sense to do that. But when you do things like that, it gives a clear representation that you're not going to do what you're supposed to do anyway. So, and then we talk about the Action Network, and we talk about NAACP, and all these type of organizations, they're fine and dandy, but every black organization that we have is funded by white people. So unless we have a true organization that's for black people in the community, we're still going to get the same things that's going on in the community. Unless the African Americans on this panel step up, either step up or step off. That's all it is. Either step up or step off. Being on this panel and not saying nothing is just like not being on the panel. So if you're going to clearly represent this county, this state, the city, or whatever it is that you represent, do it with respect. I mean, don't be on a county council. You're up there and you're tapping one another, talking. That's crazy. And so I see this from the outside as a community. I don't appreciate it. I know that other people that live in this community, whether you're black or white, it doesn't matter. We all eat the same foods. We all sleep in the same type of bed. So at the end of the day, it's not about what color you are. It's about whether you're going to just do the right thing. Mr. Sumney, I don't know you personally, neither here nor there. I heard the things that you said. As a citizen of this community, if I was to do those things or say those things at my regular job, I would probably be fired, reprimanded. So I don't see the problem in you guys getting together and say, hey, that's enough. Enough is enough. So transparency is all we're asking, okay? I don't need any more seconds. You have a good one.
All right, that will conclude our public comment portion of the agenda, and we will now move on to our regularly scheduled county council meeting. I will ask Mr. Smalls if he will lead us in the pledge, and Mr. McJunkin to lead us in a prayer. Reverend McJunkin?
Our Father, we come tonight. We thank you for the people that are in this room with many different opinions, for the fact that you gave to each one of us the gift of our lives and your Son. We pray that you would be with each one of us as we live in this community. And we work in our own ways to try to make it a better place. And we work together as we do this. Be with those that serve, be with those that live in their homes and their business. And whatever we do, may we do it in your will. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
Item 1, Madam Clerk, Freedom of Information Act.
In compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, notice of meetings and agendas were furnished to news media and persons requesting notification.
Item 2, minutes of September 20, October.
Approval.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Pryor, second by Mrs. Condon. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Item 3, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance rezoning the real property located at 387 Dunmire Hill Road from the single-family residential 4 R4 zoning district to Plan Development Zoning District PD 156. Mrs. Condon?
Aye.
Mr. Darby? Oh, absent. Ms. Johnson? Aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
Mr. Quayle? Mr. Sass?
Aye.
Mr. Schwiers?
Aye.
Mr. Summey?
Aye.
The ordinance passes third reading with 7 ayes and 2 absent.
Item 4, DuPont Wapu Community Plan. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance amending the Charleston County Comprehensive Plan at the following document locations: Chapter 3.1, Land Use Element, Section 3.1.3, General Land Use Policies, Chapter 3.9, Priority Investment Implementation and Coordination Element, Section 3.9.4, Priority Frames, Chapter 4.2, Index of Resources, Map 3.1.4, Future Land Use, Map 3.1.5, Urban Suburban Future Land Use Detail, and Map 3.1.13, DuPont Wapu Overlay Zoning District. Mrs. Condon?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
Mr. Quayle?
Aye.
Mr. Sass?
Aye.
Mr. Schwiers?
Aye.
Mr. Summey?
Aye.
The ordinance passes third reading with 7 ayes and 2 absent.
Would someone look outside and see where Mr. Darby is?
He's told me he would be back.
I have the utmost confidence in that.
An ordinance amending the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance Number 1202 as amended, Chapter 5, Overlay and Special Purpose Zoning Districts. Mrs. Condon?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
Mr. Quayle?
Aye.
Mr. I'm sorry. Mr. Sass?
Aye.
Mr. Schwiers?
Aye.
Mr. Summey?
Aye.
The ordinance passes third reading with 7 ayes and 2 absent.
Item 5 was removed from the agenda. Item 6, Minority Business Program. What is the pleasure?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pryor, second by Mrs. Condon. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 7, Social Services Building. What is the pleasure of the body?
Move for committee recommendation.
Motion by Mrs. Condon, second by Mr. Sass. We are on item number 7, Mr. Darby. Motion on the floor is for committee recommendation item 7, Mr. Darby. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Item 8, there was no action. Item 9,
I'm nay on that one.
your name
Nay for
on
prior.
7.
Okay.
Item 8, there was no action needed. And item 9, Fleet Landing Property Reverter.
Move for committee recommendation.
Motion by Mrs. Condon,
Second.
second by Mr. Sass. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. We will now move to
I
council.
have an ordinance to read
Oh,
for
that's
that.
right. I had-
Your name, Mrs. Johnson. Ms. Johnson is a nay, and the clerk has an ordinance to read.
An ordinance approving and authorizing the release of Charleston County's reversionary interest on a portion of property identified as tax map parcel identification number 45900000009-1 that is the current site of Fleet Landing Restaurant and is located at 186 Concord Street in Charleston, South Carolina.
All right, we will now move to the council comment portion of the agenda. Mr. Swears.
Mr. Johnson with the National Action Network left already, but he asked us a direct question on how council felt about what Chairman Summey should do. I will state for the record that the first time I talked to Mr. Summey after the news broke, I told Mr. Summey he should have resigned. And quite frankly, I still feel that way. I feel like the business of council will not run smoothly unless that is done, and I realize it's largely symbolic since his term ends at the end of this year. But nonetheless, I think the right thing to do would have been for him to resign. The sooner the better. It's a rather late hour now for that. I would also like to state that the half-cent sales tax, I was very lukewarm when we entered into that whole discussion about the half-cent sales tax because I thought we got a very late start. And considering the chaos that has ensued through the process, I really feel like we would be much better served to revisit the half-cent sales tax 2 years from now and hope for the best that we could put together a credible plan with good concrete measures to get the right projects done. And I think we would serve the public better in that respect. So I actually, and as a seated member of council, it doesn't necessarily mean I support the half-cent sales tax. I have all along said I might not support it myself, but I will try to get the best referendum question out there that I felt could be gotten. That being said, I personally will vote against the sales tax, at least at this point. That is my belief.
Thank you, Mr. Swears. Mrs. Johnson.
Yes, sir. I would just like to say to the council that we heard a lot of different views here tonight, but the message were pretty much similar, and some people feel left out, and they have reasons why they feel that way. I think that our council should listen to the messages that we are hearing here today and try to find a way to sit at the table and meet with some of the people that were expressing their displeasure with this council. In reference to the issue about our chairman, last meeting I made my comment, and I'll say it again. I did feel that the request made by the people that spoke, this council should listen. This is not a personal matter between each one of us, but it's certainly a matter that we should look at and put to rest, because we need to be able to trust each other when we talk to each other, transacting business with other people. And certainly, we don't want the people that we represent to feel that we don't hear them and we have no concern because we are all doing our own thing up here, because we're not. We're working here for the public, for the people. This council doesn't have the right to take anybody off of the council. Certainly, we don't have a right to take the chairman out of his position as it stands now, although we did elect our chairman. The public may not be aware of that. And this is something that if the chairman decides that that's what he wants to do, to step down, that's a decision that he has to make. However, if he doesn't know the views of the council members, then maybe that's what the council members need to state. And I do believe, because of the tapes, the comments that have been made, and certainly the council being able to deal with other elected officials, I think it's not an easy thing for us, certainly not for me, when I talk to my constituents and they want to know, well, what are you all going to do about that? We need to address it one way or the other, and I am one of those people that feel like this is a matter, if we're going to go forward and dealing with others with business as usual, then, Mr. Chairman, I think you should consider stepping down.
Mr. Darby?
You know, I sometimes get emotional. When I think how far I have come. But I'm a student of history. And Frederick Douglass says, it's not the height that you reach, it's the depth from which you come from. My grandmother was born in 1887. My parents were born in 1915. The reason I am a teacher today, because my mother wanted to be a teacher. And Berkeley County just allowed her to be educated to 7th grade and no more. My father was born in Williamsburg County. He could only go to the 2nd grade because Williamsburg County said, that's as far as we're going to educate you. My grandmother wasn't educated at all. And as an African-American male, there was a rage in me where I was born and reared. I couldn't cross Mixon Avenue because that was the white area. I can go to Danny Jones. I just couldn't because this color of my skin and the poverty. I can see my mother. I'm 7 years old, looking through the trash can, going to the dump to make ends meet that I could go to school and be educated to become a teacher. I can see that lady having no shame, going through garbage. And I'm 10 years old, hungry. And a lady gave her a food stamp, and she took it. I'm 10 years old. And my mother drew me to her and tore the food stamp up in my face. And she said, you can learn to stand on your own 2 feet. That's where I come from. And for some of these black folk to come tonight, you not realize what black politicians go through. Whites say we go too fast, blacks say you're going too slow. Which way are we to go? Dr. King said if anything that hurt him the most, if anything, it wasn't remarks from the vicious racists, no. It was the criticism from his own people. And I'm glad Mr. Craven's not here tonight because we do our damnness to do the best we can for everybody. And we are criticized the most.
I really don't understand that. Where would I be today for work for the NAACP? Tell me, where would I be if it weren't for these civil rights organizations? And I had such a hate in me that I came perilously close, I'll be honest with you, to hating all white people. That was the rage in me. You're looking at someone who integrated Berkeley High School in 1970. And I refused to salute the flag. And Mr. Williams, my black principal, pat on my behind, tore me up because I refused to salute the flag. And he pulled me behind his desk and he showed me a picture of Dr. King holding the American flag. And he said, boy, this country will never treat you as badly as they treated Dr. King. He's holding the flag. And I'm a lover of Malcolm X, Denmark Vesey, John Brown, Gilbert Prosser. But I couldn't shake Dr. King. I couldn't shake him. He kept bothering me and bothering me. And that was 1970 when I got that paddle. To the point, 13 years later, I quit my job to go study in Atlanta to study Dr. King. And I studied Dr. King empirically for 2 long years because I knew I had to get that rage out of me. I studied Dr. King. I spoke to Ralph Abernathy. I spoke to Dr. C.T. Vivian. I spoke to Jose Williams. Here's what Dr. King taught me. He taught his followers to seek to defeat injustice and not people. Because those who do evil are also victims and are not evil. Inform the opponent of the injustice and make a plan to resolving the injustice. Look for everything positive you can find in opposition. And listen what he says. Do not seek to humiliate the opponent, but to call for his friendship and understanding. And that's what I do. I was one of the first brothers, me and Mr. Pryor, to try to get the flag from the Citadel. And I got some ugly emails, very ugly. They called me the N-word so many times I was immune. So me and this white guy went back and forth, back and forth. I couldn't take it any longer. And he wrote the email, if you don't like the Citadel, so tear up your degrees and go back to Africa. Going back to Africa didn't hurt me. Or it hurt me when he said, tear up your degrees, not knowing how far I had come. And I wrote back. I took the high road. I did what Dr. King taught me. I took the high road. I wrote back and said, sir, I sincerely apologize if I have offended you in any way. The next thing I know, I get an email from him. Mr. Darby, I apologize. Sir, can we go to lunch? I met his wife. And Harry and I are friends today because I did not seek to humiliate him. I had a white student who called me the N-word. When the assistant principal said, suspend him, I said, no, don't do that. Yes, I got to suspend him. I said, no, don't do that. A few days later, the same white kid came in my office. Mr. Darby, I apologize. And today that kid and I are like this because I did not seek to humiliate him. I want to win his friendship. And let me give you one example and I'm through. I taught at one of the local colleges here, African American history. Black kids. And this white kid came to class for the sole purpose of disrupting the entire course. Came with all the Confederate wares and everything, raising hell in the class. And the student said, he has to go. I said, no, no, no. He has a right. He has a right. Bumper stickers all over the truck, everything. Within a few weeks, he started wearing the Confederate memorial stuff. took the bump off his truck, and was in tune to African American history, to the point that when he graduated and worked in one of the high schools in Tri-County, put a black mural on the wall, and the principal told him to remove it. He said, no, I'll be fired. He said, I'll be fired. And not only that, he found the love of his life, a black woman, got married. Mr. Darby, please get your notary certification because I want you to do the wedding. Had I humiliated him, I would not have that friendship today. So, ma'am, you can say what you want to say about me. I know who I am. I know who taught me. Just because I don't evince the rage as the young people do, does not mean we have not done anything. If anything is going to hurt me, it's going to hurt me from the criticism from my own people when we do our best to help out and to say the ugly things they have said to us. That's why, Mr. Pryor, I need to go. No. And just because we didn't lash out at the first beginning, that doesn't mean anything. There comes a time you have to tread slowly in this life. You cannot let fire off the handle. Because when you do like some of these guys did, you're going to lose the very allies you need the most. And just in case you remember, black folk, we didn't get here all by ourselves. If it weren't for certain liberal and radical whites, we wouldn't be here today. Where would we be without John Brown, Elijah Lovejoy, Thaddeus Stevens? Where would we be without those white folk? Viola Liazzo got her head blown off because she would try to help black folk vote. It's very sickening. I didn't mean to go on a tantrum. I sincerely apologize. But it's rough being a black politician. Nobody's ever satisfied. It's never.
It's graceful.
And finally, and with all these things, I'm not going to condemn young people. It's just a different generation. I didn't take what my mother took, and they're not going to take what we took. They're just not. But the way how we going, sometimes I think Dr. King died in vain. Sometimes I say to myself, man, you should have lived on, enjoy your family, and raise your children. Here we are, killing each other. People jumping on Joe Riley. Well, let me tell you something. Joe Riley has 6 black folks on city council. That gerrymandering didn't happen, that gentrification didn't happen by itself. He had 6 black city council workers with him. What were they doing? So don't only blame Joe, blame those 6 black council persons. And finally, as Americans, we all need to do better. Because it's just a skin color. I love students. I taught that boy right there. Sir, I taught that boy right there. I know what he's made out. If it were for his grandfather, I wouldn't be in politics today. Because his grandfather was a white man, took time with a little black boy like me to say, look, I'm going to take you to the Democratic Party dinner. His grandfather. And I don't owe him anything. But I'm not going to forget where I come from. If I were a teacher, I'd never met that young man over there. I love that brother over there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Darby, your passion has certainly been our conscience since we started serving in 2005. Thank you for sharing that really powerful story tonight. I think it actually was the most powerful I've experienced. And I thank you for what you've done for us and what you'll continue to do on County Council. Elliot knows I'm disappointed in what he said on that tape. He knows all of us are disappointed in what he said. But I also know every single one of us in this room's made a mistake. I certainly know I've made a whole bunch in my life. And I feel like this group of 9 has been a good group. We don't agree. We fight over some really silly stuff, but we also fight over some really important stuff. And I think as a group, we're good. And I believe Elliot's been fair. I felt like we've been able to represent the citizens and get things on agendas and have these discussions that aren't always pretty and don't always accomplish what all of us want, but certainly accomplish what I hope is for the better good. So thank you again for what you said tonight. And I think we need to move forward in the best way we can. And certainly, to go to a much lighter subject, part of that is my support for the Complete the Penny. Again, I won't be sitting here making the decisions with y'all, but I believe in this council, and so I'm going to do everything I can in the next 8 days to help the half-cent sales tax pass so that y'all can do great things and continue to do good things with it. So on a lighter subject, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Mr. Quayle?
I guess people want to hear what we have to think about your situation, and basically it's because if we say nothing, it can be considered condoning it, which I know that none of us do. You and I have had some very, very pointed discussions, serious discussions. I think you know how I feel. I certainly don't like the things that you said. And I thought that you were doing a pretty darn good job as our chairman, really, for the last number of years. So this also disappointed me, as it, I think, disappointed other council people. I did tell you that I was worried about your ability to continue to negotiate and lead us as the chairman going forward with negotiations with other people, elected officials, et cetera. I thought that might be compromised. However, I left a decision up to you as to what you should do about your chairmanship. We do not have the power to take the chairmanship away from you. You and I, again, we had very lengthy, serious discussions about it, and I told you how I felt. I think we're all very, very sorry that we find ourselves in this situation. I think we'll all look forward to moving on past it. But I just wanted to be honest with you, be honest with my constituents. But I've told you how I felt, and I think what you do is up to you. Thank you.
Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Elliot, you know you and I had a knockdown, drag me out. You know, I called you you came by the office, and we sat down, and privately I told you how disappointed I was. But, you know, I told you, you know, it would be best if you come out and apologize to the people and let them know that you really, really were sorry and move on. You know, a lot of times folks want you to come out and chastise people openly, and sometimes it does good and sometimes it doesn't. But he knows it in his heart. He knows what he have to do. And, you know, I didn't come in and blast you publicly because I did that privately behind closed doors. And you did what I asked you to do, to come up publicly and apologize. But what disturbs me the most is tonight, Mr. Darby, you deserve better than what you got. This has been building up all week. If you looked on Facebook, this was building up all week. They were trying to make this a spectacle, to make this a show. And they turned it from the reason it should have been and turned it on to Mr. Darby, and that is sad. I mean, people disagree. If you disagree, you can go behind closed doors, and you can sit down, and you can work things out, and you can come out amicably. But tonight, what was done to Mr. Darby was disappointed. I'm upset about it. Mr. Darby deserves better. Nobody fights harder for this community than Henry Darby. And if you look at Mr. Darby's history, you look at his past, you look at what he's done, he has a passion. When these young men we were killing each other, time after time after time, Mr. Darby said, Mr. Pryor, we got to get back out on the streets. We got to do something. We are walking. We are doing everything we can. We are going to the communities. We are offering jobs. We are offering programs. What more can we do? We are out there. The young people that are coming up today, they have a right to think and do what? But nobody has called me and Mr. Darby or Ms. Johnson and said, can we have a conversation? Tell us what y'all are doing and show us what y'all are doing. You know, all the innuendos and all the assumptions, the three first words and assumptions you figured out. That's what it is. And those folks who came out here and blasted Mr. Darby today was dead wrong. And for some of you preachers, the Bible says if a brother or sister is overtaken in a fault, you restore them with what? Meekness, because it says, remember thyself. So you don't have to blast people in order to get things over. Mr. Summy knows what he did. He apologized for it. He knows it was wrong. But I will tell you, some of the words that y'all said to Mr. Darby tonight is going to come back to haunt you. Okay? I am fed up with it. And like I told Mr. Darby, you know, I'm to the point, the way it is right now, you know, I'm to the point, you can't satisfy all of the people. Mr. Secretary made a comment before he left, oh, they appease people by doing this program. He have no idea how long we've been working on this program. No idea. But he said it and he left. Why? He wanted an applause or he wanted to be on camera to somebody said, well, John stood up for this. That was dead wrong. He owes this council, Mr. Darby, Ms. Johnson, me an apology because he has no ideas. It's okay to get up and say things without facts, and people run behind things without facts. I'm a man of facts, and I want to meet with anybody in this audience. I'll give you the facts and I'll give you the numbers. If you got a problem, you come. We'll give you the facts and the numbers. Just don't go out running your mouth about things you don't know about. Mr. Secretary said I'm in charge of a $40 million in the city of North Charleston slush fund. I want to know where that $40 million is at. The city budget isn't much more than that. But when you put these things out and you put it on Facebook and people see it, they run with it and have no truth to it. So I'm willing to meet with anybody. And I give you the facts and I give you the truth. You can't dispute the facts and you can't dispute the truth. But it's time we start running on emotions and start running on facts. And what they did to Mr. Darby tonight was wrong. I don't like it. I don't have to speak for Mr. Darby, but I won't forget it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to say I've had the privilege of being on this council for 6 years. This council's been together for 6 years. We've worked hard, we've argued, we've fought, we've agreed, we've worked very hard. I'm going to tell you, very unhappy with what Mr. Summy said. He and I have discussed that. Mr. Summy has worked very hard for this county and this council. It's been a pretty rough 2 years. A lot of events have happened that have been tough. And he's worked hard to keep this county and to keep this council together. And as far as Mr. Darby, I know Mr. Darby and Mr. Pryor work very, very hard for the community. Not their community, but all the community. But they work hard, and I know their passion. This has not been an easy couple of weeks or a month or two. It's been a lot harder for some of us than all of us. And I'm proud that we're all still up here working together. Thank you.
Mr. Dawson. I will never sit up here and defend myself. Everyone in this audience has every right to say whatever they want to about me. Some of it's true, some of it's not true. I am sorry for what I said. I've said that to each individual member of this council, privately and publicly. And I don't know if I can get through this without getting upset. I've known Teddy Pryor
all your life.
I was a baby. Since he was giving me blow pops out at the service station at Pryor's Texaco with my granddaddy. And I've known Henry Darby since the 7th grade. The reason I love history the way I do is because Henry Darby. Morningside Middle School was not a fun place to go to school, was it? And he held me to a higher standard than a lot of other people because he knew where I came from. and the admiration he had for my grandfather. Nobody fights harder every day than Henry Darby and Teddy Pryor. I'm not as familiar with Johns Island and Miss Johnson and her work. I'm sure she fights real hard. All I know is what I've grown up in and what I've been around. I've seen the lives Henry Darby's changed, because most of them are in my class. This has been a tough couple weeks. And not because of the public scrutiny, but because I disappointed some folks who I have the utmost admiration for. And Teddy Pryor and Henry Darby are two of those men. And I am sorry that someone used this situation with me to criticize you.
What's wrong?
And I will tell you, again, I will not sit here and defend me, but I will not tolerate someone talking about you. And I will defend you before I defend myself. Meeting adjourned.
Man, they publicly mentioned that, that's what they, I'm